Hello friends, my name is Chinmay Deshpande. In this video lecture, we are going to discuss about a topic from unit number 4, Economic Load Dispatch. The first lecture is dedicated to a topic Economic Load Dispatch Introduction, Objective and the Necessity of it. Now we know that the modern power system is grown in a size to meet the present load demand. The number of generators are operating in a parallel to supply the required load. Now, because of constantly rising prices of fuel, wages and the salary, power system has to operate economically to make electrical energy cost effective to the customer. Newly added generator turbine units to the steam power plant operates more efficiently and effectively, which is compared with the older units, and also have more contribution to the generation of power which is compared to the older one. Now we know that whatever will be the demand, let's say I write it here, whatever will be the demand, that much amount of generation should be there. So this is called as equality constraint. Now why it is called as equality constraint? Because here if you see in the equation, whatever will be demand, at least that much amount of generation should be there, and when we consider a power loss, so it should be added here. So PD plus PL, PL is the power loss, PD is the demanded power, PG is the power generated. In a power system operation, the contribution from each load and each unit within the plant must be such that whatever will be the cost of a generation of electrical energy, it must be minimum. Therefore, there are continuous efforts to reduce cost of the operation of an interconnected system having number of generators. So, very important point associated with generation is nothing but a cost. Now, what is our objective? Objective is nothing but cost should be minimum. Let's take one example, simple example. Suppose if I have a vehicle which will be operated with a petrol also, which will be operated with let's say we can take gas kit also. Now the rate of a fuel of a petrol or rate of the gas kit or whatever gas we are filling it in the vehicle, both the rates there is somewhat difference. So what I want to do, my goal is to drive my vehicle with minimum cost of fuel. So same way, whatever will be generator that I have, what I want to do, I want to generate electricity with a minimum cost of generation. Now when we think about a unit, when I talked about a unit, then this unit is nothing but what? It will be a boiler, plus it will be a turbine which is connected after that, and after that whatever generator which will be connected. So please keep in mind, when we always used to say a unit, then it is a combination of boiler, turbine and a generator. Now we know the load is not constant always, it changes with respect to time. Now to distribute the load among all the generating units actually working in a parallel so as to minimize the total operating cost of the supply is called as economic load scheduling. So in a simple word, I will write it as ELD is nothing but economic load scheduling or economic load dispatch. I will write it as dispatching load economically. So this might be a very simple definition of economic load dispatch. If I just rearrange the words from this, dispatching load economically is nothing but economic load dispatch. Now let's have a look for this. Let's have a look for how we can define it in a very great manner. So if I want to have distribute the load among all the generating units which are working in a parallel so as to minimize the total operating cost of the supply, then it is called as economic load dispatch or scheduling. Now there is one process of scheduling in a power system. Now what is the meaning of a scheduling? It is, I can say, it is the process of allocation of generation. It is process of allocation of a generation among different generating units, among different generators or generating units. So how we can say economic scheduling or economic load dispatch? It is a cost effective mode of allocation of generation among different units in such a way that overall cost of a generation should be minimum. So let's say I'll give you a very simple example. Suppose if I have, this is generator 1. Now if you see, this is a transmission line, this will be a generator 2. Now suppose load is connected to the bus of a generator 1. Now if you see, if I ask you a simple question, suppose if I want to serve this load, I have two generators. Now there are three possibilities. First one is keep your G1 on and supply this load, or second one is keep only G2 on or active and supply the load, or you can have a combination of G1 and G2. So when we are thinking about a combination of G1 and G2, whatever will be a generating units that actually working in a parallel, we have to distribute this load among generator G1 and G2 in such a way that the cost of a generation should be minimum. Now it is very easy that most of the power which is to be required by the load, it should be shared by a generator G1, because whatever will be a transmission losses associated with it, it will be less. On the other hand, if you see, the part of a transmission line from generator G2 to load is a maximum. So in that case, lesser amount of a power should be given by a generator G2 to the load. So now that depends upon some situations. Now we have to decide whether 80% should be given by G1, then 20% should be given by G2, or 70-30 or 50-50, likewise, which will be dependent on what is the cost of a generation of a generator. So therefore, please keep in mind what is the objective of economic load dispatch. Objective of economic load dispatch is nothing but produce the power in such a way that minimize CT. CT is nothing but total cost of generation. So what we have to do? We have to minimize this total cost of generation. So this is the objective. Now what is the necessity of this economic load dispatch? Now if you see, I have all the generators which are working, and instead of, now again we will take the same example. I can do it with the help of this condition also, if only G1 acting alone, if G2 acting alone. But what I am going to do, if I am using only a G1, then let's say it will be run up to its peak condition. If I use it only G2, it might be run up to its peak condition depending upon the load. But if I do a combination of G1 and G2, then what will happen? Immediately it will not reach to its peak condition, and whatever maintenance will be there associated with these two generators, it will be less. Now the important thing is that when we are talking about operating cost of a generation or a generator, now what are the things that we need to consider or we need to take into care while calculating the operating cost? So operating cost, it depends upon first very important point is nothing but a fuel cost. Second important point on which your operating cost depends, it is nothing but maintenance cost. So I write it here. It depends upon maintenance cost. And third one is related to labor cost. Now what is the meaning of labor cost? Let's say there is a generating plant. So there are few crew members or we can say some engineers which are working on that particular generating station. So salary of that particular people, it also depends upon what will be the operating cost, or we can say this is a one component which we need to take into consider while calculating the operating, or I can say generating cost of a generator. Now here most probably whatever cost which is taken into consideration is nothing but a fuel cost, out of which this maintenance cost and the labor cost are negligible if we compare it with the fuel cost. So while studying the economic operation, what we have to take into consideration, the operating cost of the generator is assumed to be a fuel cost, because let's say sometimes we import Australian brown coal from Australia, which sometimes cheaper than Bihar or Jharkhand or Assam. So we need to consider the fuel cost. Therefore, economic load dispatch problem is to minimize the fuel cost to supply the required load. So I can write, this is very important point. Why it is required? It is required to minimize the fuel cost, minimize the fuel cost to supply whatever required load will be, to supply required load. So this is what is the introduction of economic load dispatch. I think you have understood this. If you have any doubt, please feel free to ask. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you once again.